You can go now.
Well, thanks, Graham. I'm
There you
going.
go.
My God, and I'm going with Sven, so it's always going to be fun. So a big, massive, warm welcome to Coffee Buddies. This is number 11, I think, of our Coffee Buddy sessions at the Biotech Gate Festival. And there have been 11 extremely interesting get-togethers with all sorts of people. And as Coffee Buddies, the mantra of Coffee Buddies, because we started with India this morning, so we'll call it a mantra. The mantra of Coffee Buddies is to entertain, engage, and inform. And we're certainly doing that. And, you know, one of the things that we're very keen is that people only arrive when their voices are heard. So we will, we like to get questions, we like to interact. And as part of that, we will be initially having a talk with our dear friend Sven about Sven himself and Abzena, but also we will then sort of mix up and do a bit of get-together work, which Graham, who has an extraordinary algorithm, which is basically inserted into his fingers, will be moving us around randomly as well as he can, so that we can meet and do a bit of networking. And one of the things when we talked to Patrick about coming to join you was how could we bring to a digital conference the idea of a coffee break where people basically bump into their next customers or their next job or maybe their next wife or husband, but it's all about serendipity and it's all about a dance partner.
I don't think that's allowed anymore now, Tony. You know, in today's day and age.
I've been looking too long. Or dance partner in the case of Sven. This is our attempt, and already we've seen massive connections. And Sven, can I welcome you as an individual to kick us off, as to give us some of your thoughts on you, because you have a very interesting background, and also Abzena. So maybe let's start by introducing you. Who are you, Sven, and what do you do?
Great. Well,
what don't you do?
Thanks much, Tony and Graham. And I'm actually going to turn it over, at least a little part, to John to kind of talk about the early histories of Abzena, John Burt there. So it'd be great to hear. I've heard it from him before, but obviously it'd be great to hear, for you to hear his perspective as well. So hi, I'm Sven Lee, Chief Business Officer with Abzena. I've been here now for about almost 4 years. This October will be 4 years. But I've been in the industry for over 25 years in both the pharma, biotech, having started off initially having a background doing biology here in the US in college, then worked in research for about almost 2 years at the University of Colorado, and deciding at that time that working in the basement of a hospital just wasn't exactly my cup of tea, as it were. And then got into the pharma industry. I worked with or a precursor to Sanofi, Aventis, for 7 years before first getting into the biotech arena with Biogen. So I joined Biogen before we had actually even a commercial product back in '96, I guess that was. And it was a small company, well, relatively small company, about 300 people at the time. Stayed there for 10 years until we grew to an international organization of 5,000 people. And that's when I made a transition into the licensing and CDMO side of the business. I took on a position of Director of Business Development with Crucell and licensing the Percy 6 cell line in North America. And we went through a joint venture with DSM Biologics, where they handled the GMP manufacturing for us. We were just doing the development. After 5 years there, we were purchased by Janssen and merged, stayed on for a bit, and decided then to make a move because they had changed kind of the direction, and joined Catalent Biologics as their global VP of the biologics business development team. So that's where it got me a lot more exposure into Asia, growing the EU business development team, and then also the US business development team. So between there and here, after transitioning there, I went to a cell therapy, well, it was a med device company called Trumo BCT, had headquarters, global headquarters for Terumo parent company in Tokyo, but local headquarters here in the Denver area for Terumo BCT, where I led the cell therapy technologies division globally, again, expanding the business development team in
I mean,
Europe.
you've experienced, if you like, discovery type of style of business and service sort of businesses. And if you were to look at what the difference between running a disc business from a IP, a bit like Polytherics at the beginning, to running what you're doing now, Sven, which is a fully integrated, it's not factories, but it's big stuff. Well, you know, what's the difference between those style of being a CBO in either type of world?
You know, so early on, when we were doing kind of one-offs at Crucell, you know, we were relying on DSM to do some of the other manufacturing. It was very early days of that. It wasn't nearly as integrated as we are now. My first exposure of trying to integrate this and do a better job of that was with Catalent Biologics. Because Catalent has three core businesses, the smallest of which at that time was the biologics side. But they did have support from a fill finish and also from a development or bioanalytics, but they were more focused on small molecule side of the business. So that started to transition. And then John Burt brought me on, you know, to Abzena to help kind of build that again, except from a different perspective, all biologics focused at Abzena. And about a year or so before I had joined, he and Julian Smith and Abzena had purchased the 2 US sites to really focus on the GMP manufacturing. And that's where it was starting to build for the larger scale manufacturing. But there was a lot of transition that needed to be done that John can certainly chip in terms of the sites that were purchased on their GMP capabilities. And we've continued to build on that.
Let's bring your first slide out. And John, welcome, John. Where's John? John's an old friend. Oh, he's down there. My goodness, John. I've known John since we both worked on obesity. So, John,
I'm still working on it.
But we remember each other well from that time. But I mean, you know, bringing up your first slide, because I think your first slide is absolutely fascinating, and bringing maybe John and Sven. If you bring your first slide up, Sven, can you do that?
I think it's up now. Is it not up?
Okay. I mean, if you look at that slide, let me bring it up because it's not on my view. If you look at that slide, I mean, it's a set of cogs, isn't it? That goes over a period. How many years, John, is that? If you take it, you know, from the first cog to the abundant cogs, how long is that?
In terms of the development process, or putting them together under Abzena?
Building the company, really.
Building the company. Well, the first significant acquisition we made was within the summer of 2013, when Polytherics came together with Antidote in Cambridge, and so that integrated.
How long was Polytherics in action?
Well, Polytherics was 12 years old at that point. It had been founded in 2001.
So it's a 20-year journey, isn't it?
It's a 20-year journey to where they are now, and it's fantastic to see the continued progress of Abzena since I left. So it's coming up to 2 years since I left, when Welsh Carson took over the business, and it's great to see it go from strength to strength. But yeah, those 3 sites you see there are the culmination of both the acquisitions of, you know, the combination of Polytherics and Antidote, then the Pacific GMP in San Diego, TCRS in Philadelphia, but then the subsequent investment. And so 2 of those are completely new facilities for the business. Yeah. You're going above and beyond what was acquired.
So if you go back to your very first slide, which is the big, can you do that, Sven? Your very big slide. Have you done it, this one? I mean, if you take that journey, I'm just interested in the transitions that got made between, you know, John, where would you think, where did the thinking change that developed this into a different sort of business?
Well, I think the pivotal point, and sorry, I didn't want to gate crash your talk, Sven.
No, I love the fact that you've got all this history here, John.
I think the real pivot came when we looked at polytherics and said, okay, we've got a technology here, which was a conjugation technology being applied for pegylation half-life extension, but extending its application into ADCs. But there's good technology, very good technology, but there's not business there. And so how do we build a business? And then thinking about the customers, and our customers were those who are developing biologic products. So how do we provide more of what they need and combine a conjugation technology with a company that was providing essentially some of the components for antibody development, which was Antitope had, particularly around the antibody humanization technology. That was the first pivot. So it became an integrated service and technology offering. And it also meant we positioned ourselves more of a service business with a technology component rather than being a kind of a technology play. And from then on, the other acquisitions in the US and the investment in the manufacturing was a natural extension from left of discovery to right towards patients. And I think, Sven, that image there you've got there is a fantastic image of what Abzena represents. I can see the hands of Campbell in there somewhere.
Actually, not on this one here, but but you're right. I mean, he loves to do his slides. But so that's exactly right. I mean, what John saw, I think, early on was, the sites in the UK or the Cambridge location had all the early kind of to the left side, really, of the early development side. And what was needed then is to get into process development, into manufacturing. And we've continued to build upon that over the last 4 years. And really restructured everything from the business development team. We have now dedicated technical folks. We actually have now a dedicated scientific lead managers as well, that are the intermediaries between the technical team and the clients that we work with, so that for fully integrated programs, they really can help understand where our customers are wanting to go and put the best proposals and program lines together for them.
So just John and Sven, I mean, so you recognized, I think, John, you wasn't really a business, and where did capital come from? Massive transformation.
Well, we were lucky in that we were supported by Touchstone Innovations, formerly Imperial Innovations, as polytherics. And so they'd invested in the business, but you really wanted to see the business kick on. But then the acquisition, and it was structured as an acquisition by polytherics of Antitope, was enabled by capital from Invesco. That's back in the days when Neil Woodford was still Invesco, for those who remember those days. And he was a great supporter of the business, as were others in Invesco. And so that was a deal that we did whilst we were still private, putting polytherics and Antitope together. And then we IPO'd in 2014, so a year after that acquisition. And that IPO gave us the further capital to go forwards and make the 2 acquisitions in the US to really give what is really the seed corn for the integrated business that's there today. But there's been a lot more investment since. But yeah, I think the first major catalytic investment was really Invesco's investment.
Yeah, so I mean, and was it really the Invesco investment, then your private equity play that came in? Are they the two big blocks of this idea of a roll-up strategy? Is that what it was all about?
I mean, that's what it became, but and that's what it's embodied here. But yeah, the catalytic investments were Invesco's investment, which enabled that first acquisition. And then when Welsh Carson took over the business and took the business private and delisted from AIM, obviously the access to capital and what they put into really continuing and upscaling the investment into manufacturing, which Sven's better place to talk about now, was really the start for the next phase of the company's growth. But really, Sven should be talking about that now. He's still there on the inside and actually seeing. I'd love to see what the facilities are like these days.
So we're going to move on to Sven, but I mean, if we think of this as a story, this is a story of a company that came out. Where was polytherics out of, John? UCL?
It was the School of Pharmacy, which at the
That's
time
right.
was independent, ultimately became part of UCL, and Imperial. So it was a joint, two institution spin out.
So it's a story of 20 years, two catalytic big blocks of money, and a major transformation. And maybe Sven, you pick up veins of what it is today. I mean, I visited Polyferix years ago, and I'm sure I wouldn't recognize it today.
No, I mean, we've moved into this new facility now. I think it's almost about 3 years ago at the top in Cambridge and Daverham. And since, when John left, we had been purchased by Welsh Carson Anderson Stowe, which is one of the largest and oldest private equities in the US based out of New York. And they've been infusing lots of cash, so far over $65 million into our organization, with a commitment to upwards of 150 million. And we're looking now to expand even beyond what we're doing now. We're looking into M&A opportunities to grow, either to buy some more facilities or technology, or to expand. And what's happened since is the San Diego facility that you see there in the middle is our brand new GMP facility. We have 2 GMP suites there. We've actually kept the older facility that's 2 miles away and upgraded those suites where we also have 2 GMP suites. So we go up to 2,000 liters now. All of them have 500s in them as well. But we just actually last week started our first run in that of the San Diego facility of the 2,000. And as of today, probably in a couple of hours, we've got the California FDB doing their inspection for the registration. And for those that don't know, the California FDB is somewhat similar to the FDA, although it's very specific for California. And until we get into phase 3, which we have the capabilities at this facility to do phase 3 and small commercial, and we have phase 3 programs coming through. Once we initiate those, we expect the FDA then to investigate as well and register us. So we've, Welsh Carson's put a lot of money in. They've been very supportive, not only for San Diego, but also for the Bristol site, where we have now 2 upgraded GMP suites. We've just finished the Bioconjugation suite, which we can also now do phase 3 and commercial product if needed. And we're finalizing the small molecule GMP suite to have the same capabilities. So a lot has gone in over the last 2 years.
And I think you were saying yesterday, Sven, that, I mean, how many employees are there now?
We're about 350 now. We're adding another 40 or so now into the San Diego facility. So we're continuing to add folks. We'll be closer to 400 probably by the beginning of next year.
And it's now run by a guy who used to be at Tuit, is that correct?
Correct. So Jonathan Goldman actually is English. Although he's been living in San Francisco now for over 20 years. He's a cardiologist by training. But he's worked with Icon. He's worked most recently, though, as CEO of Tuit, which was also owned by Welsh Carson Anderson Stowe and then sold to Evotech. And after that transition, he was an operating partner on their board and helping them identify the next organization to buy. And that's when they came across Abzena as an opportunity to transition. And, I've worked with private equity before when Catalent was still private. And, not all private equities necessarily act this way. Oftentimes they're looking to cut costs and turn things around very quickly and sell. They have a much longer view on organizations and putting money into them. That's actually what they had done with Tuit before they sold. I think they actually held on to them for almost 10 years, which is unusually long for private equity. But that's what they're doing now with us as well.
Wasn't Tuit out of Quintiles?
Oh, that I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was that. So it went in a circle. But if you look at the board structure of Abzena now, is it predominantly the PE people?
I'm sorry, the what people?
The board, the private equity people. Is it all? Is it effectively one company now?
It is. It is.
So,
they've got about 27 billion in various assets all over. and they kind of divide it between healthcare and technology. Traditionally, they haven't done CDMO side of the business until Aptuit. They've done other types of organizations, hospital buying groups and things like that. So Aptuit was kind of their first foray into more of the CDMO side of the business. And so they're replicating that model right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So,
thus far, they've been very happy with the sales and revenue that we've been generating.
yeah. So if you show your next slide, Sven.
Yep, I will do that. And actually, I think I forgot to,
Yeah,
I forgot to put up the other ones, the other slide deck.
it's the big one you have of
Yeah.
development of
So this is the work that we really do all over in the UK, from antibody discovery, developability, cell line development. We've just launched a new CHO-K1 cell line, over the last several months that we've been developing over the last 2 years. So that's been very successful in the early times. But what they do a lot of is the bioassays and the analytics, not only for the biology portion, but also for the chemistry portion to support the work that's being done in San Diego and in Bristol as well.
Excellent.
I'll skip that. That's just really about developability. Many companies really want to de-risk manufacturing in clinical. So these are lots of words here, so I won't go over that. But we're doing a lot of FTE work for developability, for early assessment of programs, and trying to de-risk that. And this is really where things have gone now over the last couple of years. We've expanded the capabilities. Everything now is on a Sartorius platform for most of the upstream in San Diego and downstream, as well as the downstream in Bristol, where we do the bioconjugation work as well. But it all starts in the UK, where we also have 2 Amber 15s now for cell line development and looking at how to start to optimize that. We've got 2 Amber 250s now in San Diego. And we go up to a 2,000 liter scale with a 500 liter Stirting single-use bioreactors in each of the 4 GMP suites we have there. So it really is state of the art. We have massive windows to see into the GMP facilities so that our customers, when they're walking through, don't necessarily have to go in. They can just view through that. We have cameras all throughout the system as well, so they can see into the GMP suites.
Fantastic.
Again, more equipment here, from the 50 liters to the 500 liters and the 2000s. And the next phase, as I mentioned earlier, is we are looking to, we have the 2000 now, but the next step is to find a facility where we could have maybe multiple 2000 liters. So we are looking at the options to buy or build right now, which is nice that the board has seen. We have doubled our revenue in the last year and almost tripled sales in the last year and a half. And so really seeing that there's a huge opportunity. Obviously, COVID's kind of interesting right now as well, which I don't know if you've had that discussion, but I've literally been sitting here at my desk since March 6th, my last trip to San Diego. But despite that, our sales could not have been any better this year. And it's not only COVID programs. I mean, we're getting all sorts of interesting programs, lots of new conjugation work that we're doing as well. And so it's very interesting to see that the business is still very, very robust. I'm hearing that from colleagues in other companies as well. And despite that, so, of course, our CFO says, well, maybe we don't need to travel anymore. But that's not going to be the case once everybody does open up. So I am actually going to drive out to San Diego next week for some interviews. I'm hiring a new person for the San Francisco area, and we're expanding the BD team some more too. So that's been interesting. What others
okay, just to let you know, we're going to just 2 minutes and then questions. Yeah, any questions?
Go back to the last slide, Sven. I mean, just to your very last slide. I mean, so if the growth of the COGS from 20 years ago to where we are now, 2 massive catalytic things. I suppose one question is where are you going to go next? And I suppose the other question is what do you think the founders would have said who started it 20 years ago it is now? How do you think they would have thought?
Well, we've got one of the founders here online. I'm sure he's probably, I hope he's impressed in what he's been able to start the foundation of and what we're building. The next phase is that we are really building into, we're not going to be the big Lanzas or the Samsungs. We don't want to be that. You know, we're large enough to do all the work in 2000s, but we are certainly flexible enough to do what we need to do to work with clients. And so the majority of the customers that we work with are the small to mid-sized biopharma. We're getting a lot more also complex chemistry that we're doing. The one thing I didn't highlight was also the bioconjugation work, and I'll just flip to that one slide here that I think kind of represents a lot of what we're doing on the bioconjugation side, from discovery through to GMP. But we have that flexibility of really working with smaller organizations, but have the science to work with the largest that we are in some of the biggest pharma companies in the world, especially when it comes to the chemistry side of things and the conjugation work that's being done, which is very impressive. It's all the things in the middle there that are so important, from the conjugations to the polymers, the linkers, that are so difficult to make sure that we're working right. So I think that they'd be proud of that.
So fantastic. Sven and John, a double act. I never thought that I would be with two such illustrious guys as a double act. Can we give you a big round of applause? I think we'll give Sven a bigger round of applause because, well, just because we will, really. But John gets a bit of a round of applause. Anyway, we love you, John. So, I mean, we've got a couple of questions, and then we're going to get into the mixing it up with Graham's algorithm.
Absolutely.
But there's a very interesting question from Jean-Francois.
Yeah, Jean-Francois, you can go first, and then Julie after that.
Hi. Yes, I was just wondering which is now the biggest part of the business for Abzena. I mean, it looks like the manufacturing is really, really taking off. I mean, obviously, we always think about Abzena as the antibody discovery. Is that still strong, or where's the business? Is it really shifting towards the production now?
Well, so I would say that from a revenue perspective, yes, it's on the manufacturing side. But the science is where, the work that we're doing both in Cambridge early on in the discovery and development area, I mentioned the developability aspect, as well as on the chemistry side, particularly in Bristol, because of the science that happens there. But clearly, when it starts to shift into GMP manufacturing, the revenue based off of that is at a much larger scale. And right now we still have some capacity in the San Diego facilities, but that's very quickly filling out. I mentioned that we already have our first 2,000 liter GMP run that started just last week. And we're working on finalizing an agreement right now for a phase 3 campaign for another organization. So it's going to shift in terms of manufacturing from a GMP, but we are not giving up on all of the importance of leading and working with our clients all the way through from the very early phases.
Right.
Another question while I'm there, or do I have to wait?
You could have a quick one.
Another quick one. In the discovery, are you also shifting using a lot of AI-derived method, or are you still doing the whole discovery process? So
we haven't yet, but I know that Campbell Bunce, our CSO, and the team there are looking at various things. We've brought in other types of technologies like microfluidics to identify clones, at high levels. So we're looking at other types of technologies to help improve and shorten the development time right now. And again, fortunately, we've got the commitment from the Welsh Carson Anderson Stowe board to continue to pay for those types of equipments and capabilities.
Great. We've got time for another quick one from Julie. Hi, Julie, if you'd like to ask your question.
Yeah, hi, Sven.
Hello.
Hope to see you in person
It's
again.
been a while.
Travel. My question is more on the financing side. Of course, Welsh Carson has a big commitment already, but I follow the news in Abzena, and I saw, like, over the summer there was a capital injection from BioSpring Partners that also went into the company. And I was just curious, because you don't often see sort of private equity owned organizations allowing sort of $10 million of growth capital. So can you talk to us a little bit about that? You know, because they're effectively
I don't know how much I can
diluting
say
themselves.
specifically about it, other than it happened. But yeah, so it was an opportunity where you know, we had spoken to her about opportunities to get involved on the board, and she was very excited about the opportunity
with
and starting her new BioSpring fund. And you know, so they had a good relationship with Jonathan in the past and the board, and so thought, okay, let's go ahead and do that. But you're right, it's a bit unusual to do that, and it wasn't because Welsh Carson needed the money. I think they said, okay, let's bring maybe another partner in and help with some aspect of it. But yes,
interesting. Good luck. Great story.
Well, let's go into the algorithm.